When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Hello, welcome along to Somewhere on Earth. It's Gareth, and it is Tuesday, the 1st of July. Joining us today, people, is Wairimu Gitahi, all the way from lovely Kenya, from beautiful Nairobi. How are you? What's your gossip, Wairimu?
Hi, Gareth. How are you? I'm very fine.
Exceedingly well.
Yeah, I mean, I've just been thinking about something, and I said, I must tell Gareth and see what he thinks about it. So I've been seeing very many videos of political leaders, a lot in our country, Kenya, but also around the world, where they've done like AI imitations of them as babies. And here we are just laughing about it because Kenya, culturally, we laugh about problems most of the time. So seeing a political leader in the image of a baby, AI generated, saying the same thing he was saying the other day, to this crowd in the middle of wherever, and really basically cheating them that he'll do something for them. So it sounds even more hilarious when it's in the form, when it's same voice, but a version of him, a caricature of him as a child. So I think that sort of satire is really interesting, and I can see even many people on Instagram, TikTok, offering videos of how to make such videos. So I've been quite intrigued by that, and also intrigued by how people have really taken it up. So in terms of tech, I think that's what I've been laughing about since the week began.
Well, I'm very pleased that we're all taking the august institutions of our political establishment sufficiently seriously, Wairimu. And of course, I mean, politicians as babies, I think there's one world leader who shall remain nameless, but is sometimes likened to being a bit of a kind of orange baby. I have no comment on that at all, and that's not a kind of AI thing necessarily. But okay, well that's it's not a trend I'd heard of. This babyfication of politicians on AI. And
I'll send you a clip.
Please do. And the playful side of me just will revel in this, and will no doubt share it, and I'll bring it, to others. On the other hand, we're going to hear in the next few minutes about the enormous environmental and energy cost of AI. So is this the best use of rare energy resources? That's me wearing my sensible hat. So, it's very nuanced, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Very nuanced. Yeah.
But yeah, do send me one of those videos. I think I'll enjoy it.
We'll do.
Let us jump into the serious stuff. Here we go. And coming up today, yes, the need to save energy and the opportunity to share food. Two big themes today. On the energy front, prepare for yet more eye-watering figures about the energy costs of AI. Like when you do one of those smart searches online instead of the usual quick Google search, for instance. As the models get more sophisticated, the electricity bill goes up. And as for the food side of things, we hear about the app that's connecting people who want food with those who would otherwise be throwing the food away. It's all right here on the Somewhere on Earth podcast. All right, then let's start on the energy costs of artificial intelligence. AI was swallowing up a fifth of global data center power by the end of last year, and it's on track to account for the best part of half of data center power needs by the end of the year. And that's even more, when you add all that up, that's even more carbon emissions, even more energy use than cryptocurrency mining. Wow. Now, these figures come from the latest research by Alex De Vries of the Institute for Environmental Studies in Amsterdam. Welcome back to the podcast, Alex. How are you?
Thank you for having me. All well here. Hope the same for you.
Yeah, all good, thank you. So I've given a few headline figures in that introduction there. Can we just go through those figures a little bit then? So what was that you said in your report? Half of data center power needs by the end of this year. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah, indeed. The number is like 23 gigawatts of power demand. So then you're indeed going to be approaching half of the power demand of all data centers combined. I should note, excluding cryptocurrency mining. Typically, in this landscape, we don't really include cryptocurrency mining.
Yeah, I can't help doing a kind of rather lazy extrapolation from that and thinking, well, at this rate, there basically won't be enough energy capacity or data center capacity to handle AI. So in a way, it's a problem that will have to sort itself out because the capacity will simply run out. Is that a bit hysterical?
This is actually one of the notes that I put with this number is, are we even going to have enough capacity to power all of this? Because you're trying to add the equivalent of 2 times the Netherlands in terms of power consumption on the global power grid. One time last year and another time this year. That's massive. So you need to be able to find a spot where you can get sufficient power, on multiple spots, of course, but that's going to be challenging when you're talking about this much power.
Ouch. And I always love reading your research because it's fascinating seeing where you get these figures from. And it's not as if you've just kind of Googled, energy demand of a GPU unit and then multiplied it by the number of graphical processor units in data centers and come up with a rough estimate and come up with the grabby headlines so that you get invited onto podcasts like this. What you're actually doing is looking at the power consumption of individual chips as part of these graphical processing units that are like the bedrock of AI. And you're even looking at how many of these kind of processors you can cram onto chips and therefore how much heat dissipation they're going to need. So I don't mean to tell the story for you, but I'm just making the point to the listener, Alex, that you didn't just Google a load of numbers and just stick some rather rough quote together, did you?
No, it's quite absurd what you need to do to come up with these numbers. You really have to dive into the AI hardware supply chain. You have to go all the way to the special packaging technology that is ultimately being used for making these AI chips. I won't get into the technical details of why we're using a certain special packaging technology, but I will tell you that all popular AI chips in the world are being packaged by TSMC in Taiwan. We can figure out how much packaging capacity they have, how much they have available, and how many chips we can make as a result of that. And once you have those numbers, you can also figure out, how many AI accelerator modules can we make with that? How many AI systems, and what is going to be the likely power demand of all these systems? It's a whole lot of steps to get to a number which could, in fact, easily be disclosed by the big tech companies. I mean, they know exactly how many of these specialized machines they have and how much power they're consuming. They just don't put it in their environmental report, but they have the numbers. But instead, you have to do all this digging in the supply chain. You have to go through documents which are only available in Chinese. You need to know how semiconductors are made. And then ultimately, you can maybe put some approximation on the final number, but it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you have to look up the individual NVIDIA data sheets yourself because that figure isn't collated for you. And actually, I mean, even if the technology companies were including really detailed figures in their accounts and in their annual reports, I suppose we'd probably still need people like you to go ahead and verify those figures, wouldn't we? So yeah, I think it's worth you putting the effort in. Is all I'm saying. But then we did hear, I mean, not so long ago, of course, China shocked the world with its DeepSeek AI that seemed to use fraction of the power of the AI models that we might use from Silicon Valley. And of course, many of the AI companies, like the US ones anyway, said, "Oh well, that's just DeepSeek just copied our technology and they've saved a whole load of power." But there's probably a bit more to that story, isn't there? So what does DeepSeek tell us?
Well, that's a big question in itself because it's really hard to verify any claims made by the company behind DeepSeek. So if they are claiming to have these massive efficiency gains, we can only trust them on the word, but we can't really verify it. But okay, let's assume they did indeed manage to make a model that's a whole lot more efficient. Then the next thing is, what does that tell us? What does that mean? Because if you look at the development of AI models and AI hardware over the past few years, they have already been getting tremendously more efficient. This is not something new. We have seen huge efficiency gains, and the result of that has been that we're now spending more resources on AI than ever before, because now we started to use those efficiency gains to make the models bigger. Those models became mass adopted, and the electricity consumption of AI is going through the roof. So efficiency gains don't necessarily have any meaning. With AI, a big challenge we have from a sustainability perspective is that with AI, bigger is better. If you make these models bigger, they will perform better, which is great from an AI perspective, but from an environmental point of view, less is better. So this is already a big issue fundamentally. And I don't see efficiency gains as making a big difference. Well, they make a difference, but in the sense that we are using those gains to make models bigger and drive adoption of this technology, which is also driving up our resource use in total. So it's not necessarily helping us. It's actually, it's just been making things worse in the past few years.
So why Rimu? There we are. So far, we've Alex and I in our conversation, we've had a US perspective, a Chinese perspective, or at least we've discussed those two territories. What about your perspective sitting there in Kenya?
Of course, for us to be able to get the power, the gigawatts, the power needed for AI, we need carbon. Now, my question is, we as Africa, I'm talking from Kenya, we emit the least emissions in terms of carbon. Like, what effect would this have on Africa then? In relation to that, Africa emits the least, but it is from here that most of the Western countries get their carbon.
The thing is, if you look at the rising the power demand of AI, the impact of this is going to be that we're going to be using more fossil fuels. And the thing with power grids in general is that we have a limited capacity of renewable power. So and by the way, secondly, we are also prioritizing those renewables. So the renewables that we have available, we try to use as much as possible. So if we see a tremendous increase in power demand, it doesn't really matter where it's coming from. Okay. In this case, we're talking about a huge increase in the power demand of AI, but it could be anything else. That power demand, that extra power demand is not going to be sourced from renewable because, like I said, we're already using as much of those as we can. So it's going to be coming from the backup infrastructure, which is typically the fossil fuel-based infrastructure that we have been trying to get away from in the past few years. That is going to be used again to meet the additional power demand that's now being created by AI. And I think this is a concern. And of course, the exact impacts will vary exactly where you're building these, where you're building this infrastructure, because one area there might be more gas, in another area there might be more coal-based power. But overall, increasing power demand is going to translate to increased use of fossil fuels. And you can actually see this acknowledgement in Microsoft's recent environmental report as well, where they're saying like, okay, our power demand is going up, but we are seeing some difficulties in meeting that increasing demand with carbon-free electricity sources. So I think this is a big challenge at the moment.
Yeah, and therefore even a climate change challenge.
Absolutely.
there's so much to unpack in this, very complicated and important piece of work, Alex. So, what is the big take home? What is the one thing that you want listeners of this podcast to take away? I mean, is it to just switch off smart search on search engines, if indeed you can? Is it, we can't just give up using AI, or should we be lobbying our policymakers? I don't know. What should we make of this?
Yeah, I think the important thing, the first thing we should take care of is getting more data, because like I've been trying to explain, it's been incredibly hard to put a number on this. I had to go through a ridiculous amount of steps just to be able to put a number on the power demand of AI, whereas the big tech companies, if they were to supply these numbers, they know how much specialized equipment they have, and if all these big tech companies put out the deployment of that equipment, we'll have a pretty good picture of where things are at, because they're also the largest user of this type of equipment. But they don't provide it. And it would be really unfair to then start putting some responsibility on the end user, expecting end users to make responsible choices about whether or not to use ChatGPT, and while you're not being told anything about the impact it's having on the real world. We can only state, okay, AI is here. It is definitely having a significant real world impact already at the moment, and it's growing really fast. But we don't get any tools, any way of assessing that from the tech companies that are providing these applications, and that also makes it really hard for any end user to make responsible decisions about using this technology. So for me, it would really start with maybe policymakers pressuring tech companies to provide more disclosure. We know the AI Act is coming in Europe, and it does contain some environmental disclosure requirements, but it's not enough. This is also in my article that I wrote. It's very limited amount of disclosure for a very limited part of the life cycle of an AI model. It's not going to be that helpful. We really need to extend this type of disclosure to get proper insights in what is really going on with AI, and then we can start thinking about how to responsibly manage this. But as long as we don't have the data, you can't really get to the second question.
All right, Alex, thank you very much. And to you, Wairimu.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
Have you ever spotted McDonald's hot, crispy fries right as they're being scooped into the carton? And time just stands still. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This is History's Heroes. People with purpose, brave ideas, and the courage to stand alone, including a pioneering surgeon who rebuilt the shattered faces of soldiers in the First World War.
He would look at these men and he would say, "Don't worry, Sonny, you'll have as good a face as any of us when I'm done with you."
Join me, Alex von Tunzelmann, for History's Heroes. Subscribe to History's Heroes wherever you get your podcasts.
So now then, the app that's all about mitigating food waste. And it's a pretty simple idea, really. Restaurants and shops, well, they throw away a lot of unsold food every day. So this startup called Food to Save takes that produce, much of it which is close to its use-by date, but still perfectly safe, and then it connects that unwanted food with those who might want it. The startup here takes the produce and makes it into what they call surprise bags. Lovely. Anya's been finding out more from Lucas Infante, who's the co-founder and CEO of Food to Save.
Food to Save is the biggest movement against food waste in Brazil. So we are a marketplace and we are fighting against the food waste in Brazil. So we are a marketplace, an app. So we are connecting a lot of establishment foods like bakeries, coffee shops, restaurants and supermarkets, hotels, that they have surplus food. So you sell this surplus food in a surprise bags to 1 million of users. So it's a triple win concept. So for the users, we are giving access for this food. For the establishments, we are monetizing, so the capital, so the surplus food, and of course the impact, the social impact and the environmental impact.
What do you do? Do you have an app? Do you?
Yeah.
So how does it work?
Yeah, we have an app. So it's very simple. It's a free version for Apple or for Android. So you have right now 5 million users in Brazil and 10,000 establishments. So it's a concept, like I said. So it's very easy. You have to find your, I don't know, your favorite establishment. You have to choose your surprise bag. We have 3 kinds of surprise bag. You have the bake, the celery, the sweetie, and mix it. So you choose your surprise bag. You have to pay by app or pick up or by delivery mode. So just enjoy your surprise bag and save the world.
And it all arrives in a little brown paper bag, obviously, with food to save on it, and that's it. People get food.
Yeah, I think we have a big problem here in Brazil, like a cultural problem. So we're trying to change the mindset. So this is the challenge that we have. So it's not about economy, it's not about food, but it's about to change the mindset in the Brazilian society or about the entrepreneurs in these food establishments. So that's what we are trying to do right now in Brazil.
How much food is wasted in Brazil?
About 8 billion tons of food each year in Brazil. It's too much food. It's like you can compare Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro. It's like 2 Maracanã Stadium full of food each year in Brazil. It's a lot of food.
In percentage-wise?
It's like 1/3 of all food produced in Brazil is being wasted right now. So it's too much food. So we are trying to, of course, solve this problem with this solution, with this machine.
Do people pay for each bag?
Yeah, it's about in dollars, it's like about $5. So it's very economic model. So it's like, I don't know, from bakery or supermarkets or coffee shops, it's about between $3 and $5 that each one pay for the surprise bags with a surprise food. That's it.
So how successful has it been here at Web Summit?
Well, it's the second time we are working right now here in Web Summit. So with the stand. So it's very important for the branding, for the position, for the B2C consumers. So to change the mindset, to talk a lot of users, partners, investors. So come on, it's amazing. It's the capital of the innovation. It's a lot of good stuff and good contents and good speakers. So it's necessary for us to be here.
There you go. That's Lucas Infante talking there to Anya. And Wairumi, can we bring this to you? What about in Kenya, where you are? Is food waste a problem in Kenya?
Yes. So here we've got like 2 sides of the coin. There's the issue of having famine, hunger seasons, and then there's this other issue of food wastage. So of course, an AI assisted app will be very useful in predicting, the environment, when to plant, when we'll have drought, and so on and so forth. But to be honest, Gareth, my main concern is really not coming up with an AI app that can predict this kind of things, because you see, an AI app also works according to the data that it has. So I can see it very easily predicting environmental issues, even economic issues like prices in the market, because sometimes those also affect the availability of food. But I can't really see it predicting issues to do with like politics, which is a very big issue in Africa, very big issue in Kenya. And of course, that also influences the issue of drought, the issue of hunger, how you predict those kinds of things, because politics are very difficult to predict because they affect these kind of things. They affect the distribution. Like now in Kenya, we have what is called counties. So it's not that the central government gives the money to the counties and then the money is distributed within the counties where people stay. So also that affects whether people have enough to plant, can be able to sell what they plant, and so on and so forth. So, and also I don't really believe there's so much as a problem to predict these things, because many times we'll hear from the meteorological department where they tell us there'll be floods, there'll be a famine, and so on. My main concern is the policies that are put in place when we have that information. So I'm sorry to sound a bit pessimistic about it, but I think there are just so many other aspects at play so that it can be really effective. But definitely, we do need something that helps us to predict hunger, to avoid it, to avoid food wastage, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I can imagine a lot of what you're saying is prompted by a news story that came out quite recently about the University of California working with Microsoft, wasn't it? Working on like an AI system to predict things like drought and to, predict hunger and food shortage before it becomes a problem. And I'm really fascinated by what you say. It's like, however effective that model is, it's still... it's still up against those political forces, those social factors that whatever a model says could change the dial a little bit. And it reminds me a little bit, Wairimu, when I was in Uganda a while back, and it was with a journalistic visit when I was still doing Digital Planet with the BBC. But anyway, we went to visit a farmer and we were talking about crops and food shortages in Uganda. And this guy was saying Uganda has way more food than it needs. It produces way more than it needs, but so much of it gets wasted in the rainy season when the trucks get stuck in all the mud on the roads, going from the farms to the market. So that's a whole other factor as well. And is that typical in Kenya as well? Just stuff wilting on the trucks because they just get stuck on the way from the farm?
Yeah, for sure. Those kinds of things happen. And so the issue of infrastructure, which is governed by policy and so on and so forth, which is governed by politics, all these things also play a factor. But I'm not saying that it's not important to have something that predicts. I'm just saying that for it to effectively work, there are other factors at play.
Yeah, I think I'm really glad you said that because, indeed, I mean, I'm excited about tools like this. Don't get me wrong. I think it's fantastic that we have, if we have access to all this data and all these analytics, well, why wouldn't we use it? Because it must be at least part of the problem. But I think you're reminding us a little bit like, say, 15 years ago, that phrase came out, didn't it? Like, there's an app for that, everything, there's an app for that. And I think now everyone's saying, well, there's an AI for that. Well, there might be an AI for that, but an AI isn't going to help you if your crops are just getting stuck in the middle of a road in the rainy season amid a whole load of political upheaval and corruption.
Exactly.
What can you do?
Exactly.
Right.
So, yeah.
There we are. I can't resist saying it. Food for thought. I promised myself I wouldn't use that. Oh, you liked it. I love working with you.
Good one, Gareth.
Okay. All right. And dear podcast listener, if you would like to, let's just say dear listener, make it a bit more friendly and personal. If you have a hunger for this kind of content and you want to hear even more of it than we offer in the main part of the podcast, then we'd love you to subscribe. That would be exceedingly lovely of you. So if you want to find out how to subscribe, it's $10 a month. And if you do a kind of search for something like pod.fan somewhere on earth, you should be able to find us and then follow the instructions to help us keep this podcast going. We'd hugely appreciate it. And thank you to all of you who already do. And this show is sponsored by Roost, connecting technologies and people, generating intelligent and sustainable solutions through edge computing. That'll do us then, Wairimu. It's been lovely this week. Should we do it again next time?
Sure. Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Cheers.
Already. Thank you
Bye-bye.
too. And to production manager Liz Thierry, editor and CEO and producer Anja Lichterowicz, and I'm Gareth Mitchell. We are with the Evergreen Podcast Network. Bye-bye.